The world is focused on giving foreign aid to Africa. Every year, millions of demonstrators call for it, governments are judged by it, and celebrities advocate it as well. Despite the good intentions of giving foreign aid to Africa, I am here to argue that foreign aid does significant harm to Africa. To support my claim, I will prove 3 points. Foreign aid keeps corrupt governments in power, foreign aid devastates the economy, and foreign aid causes civil unrest and civil conflicts. For my first point, how does foreign aid keep corrupt governments in power? Sadly, it is a fact that African countries suffer from rampant corruption. The UN's Economic Commission for Africa recently conducted a survey on corruption in African countries that covered 28 of the 53 countries. The ECA polled 50,000 African families for the report, and they found that all countries had terrible ratings on corruption, political representation, economic management, and respect for human rights. The report could only cover 28 countries because the remaining 25 governments did not agree to participate. The African Union, an organization of African nations, estimates that corruption costs Africa $150 billion a year. According to Transparency International, Mobutu Sese Seko, Zaire's president for over 30 years, stole at least $5 billion from the country, and Malawi's former president, Bakili Muluzi, was charged with embezzling aid money worth $12 million. According to William Easterly, professor of economics at New York University, 2/3 of all aid has gone to corrupt rulers. According to William, over $600 billion of aid has gone to Africa over the past 45 years, and corrupt African rulers have stolen $400 billion of it, but the aid keeps on coming. William explains that a constant stream of free money is a perfect way to keep a corrupt government in power. As the money flows in, the government has nothing more to do. As long as it pays the army, it knows its citizens are in check. Then the corrupt rulers are free to do with the money as they please, often stealing it. With foreign aid money, there are few or no strings attached, and it's easy for the money to be used for any purpose except for the poor for whom it's intended. The more money the corrupt government gets, the more power it has, and the longer its reign will be. For my second point, I will explain how foreign aid devastates the African economy. First of all, aid isn't free. According to Dambisa Moyo, economist and author of Dead Aid, Why Aid is Not Working and How There's a Better Way for Africa, African countries still pay close to $20 billion in debt repayments annually. How do African countries pay these debts? Dambisa explains that they get more aid money to pay off their debts owed on aid money, creating a vicious cycle that starts itself all over again. Foreign aid leaves African countries in a circle of debt. Secondly, what happens when you input billions of dollars of aid into poor economies? There's a term called Dutch disease that describes, in Africa's case, how large inflows of money can kill off the country's export. Dutch disease drives up prices and makes local goods too expensive for export. This is catastrophic for jobs in the poor country, where people's livelihoods depend on being relatively competitive in surrounding and global markets. Third of all, non-monetary aid is devastating to African economies too. The U.S. Food for Peace program spends millions of dollars each year to buy American-grown food that is shipped across the oceans. The end result? Oxfam estimates that U.S. subsidies cost African farmers roughly $400 million a year. The food that is grown and purchased in the U.S. puts African farmers out of business that can't afford to compete with the flood of free food from the U.S. in Africa. This is how aid devastates the economy. For my third point, foreign aid causes civil conflict and civil unrest in Africa. Today, Africa is the most unstable continent in the world. Since 1996, 11 countries have been entangled in civil wars. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, in the 1990s, Africa had more wars than the rest of the world combined. An article in the Wall Street Journal titled, "Why Foreign Aid is Hurting Africa," claims that civil clashes are often motivated by the knowledge that seizing the seat of power gives complete access to the package of aid that comes with it. The article, printed in March of 2009, talked about recent political upheavals in Guinea, Madagascar, and Guinea-Bissau in 2009, each of which remains reliant on foreign aid. The article claims that the ongoing civil conflicts across the continent show that aid causes civil unrest in Africa. In conclusion, foreign aid does significant harm to Africa because foreign aid keeps corrupt governments in power, foreign aid devastates the economy, and foreign aid causes civil conflicts and civil unrest. Foreign aid provides the money that provides the power to corrupt governments. Foreign aid puts African countries in debt and puts Africans in unemployment, and it causes civil unrest and fighting for control of government power. It is a sad reality that something with such good intentions can do so much harm to people who already suffer enough greatly. But now you know exactly how foreign aid does significant harm to Africa.
All right, the opening statement's a nice description to set up your argument. You've got a clear statement of what your claim is, what the main proposition is, and the secondary claims were laid out also very nicely. I thought you did a good job transitioning from one idea to the next in the body of the speech. Pretty consistent about citing evidence and giving us the sources for that information. There's some statistical information that you present. You've got some examples and plenty of testimony and opinion evidence. So I thought that you did a good job on that. I thought especially on the first and second points that there was a good development of the evidence on those points. On the third point, you're a little dependent on some examples that you have, and I think that the notion that those examples are connected to a fight over getting access to the aid needs to be strengthened a little bit. I thought you had an excellent summary reminding us the points that you were trying to make, and that generally you did a good job speaking to us, although I think you want to get the pen out of your hand so that we're not noticing how closely you're following from word to word through the speech. All right. Thank you.